Hi, this is Justin Coletti. You may know me from Sonic Scoop, but today I am with Plugin Alliance, and we are talking to a man who is probably one of the most prolific mastering engineers in the history of recorded music. That may sound like hyperbole, but is absolutely not. It is Mr. Howie Weinberg. Howie Weinberg, how are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good considering we're supposed to be in a quarantine.
Right.
But, that's my life in quarantine,
Yeah, and mastering engineers know how it goes. Now, real quick, I want to just talk you up a little bit more for those people who don't know who you are. Shame on them. You have made, since the 80s through now, some of the biggest records in rock, in hip-hop, across genres. A lot of the records I grew up listening to, Nirvana, Sonic Youth, Blonde Redhead, Ween, all of this stuff. He did all of the cool big rock records, but he also did all the cool metal records, Metallica and Slayer. He also did all the cool hip-hop records, some of the first hip-hop releases ever, and then, really big ones from the 90s and 2000s, LL Cool J. It would be unfair to just pick artists from your discog, because when someone goes through it, it's like everybody who is famous ever. Am I overstating things? I don't think I am, Howie.
Actually, you're understating it, believe it or not. I really could get you impressed if I had to, but you're doing great here, okay?
Yeah, well, it's all true. I was amazed.
I've been told to be humble, so I'm a little humility here.
Well, you have won, I think, 15 Grammys or been on 15 Grammy-winning projects and 32 nominated ones, so it's ridiculous.
Yeah, I figured it out. 32 nominations, 15 Grammys. Over 200 some odd plaques, gold and platinum plaques. There's one site out there that actually it's verified. I have 19,000 credits.
Wow.
Now, I don't know what that exactly means. And the work I've done has gone to over 28 billion streams. Not sure what that means either. Mm-hmm. I haven't seen anything in the mail. I haven't seen any checks. I haven't seen any. I haven't seen a dime out of it yet. But I got what do they call? I got bragging rights.
Exactly. Sadly, they're not giving mastering engineers royalties and residuals, but if so, you'd be a
I probably own the phone that you're on.
Right. Yeah. Well, we want to get insights into your process. The reason we're talking today is Plugin Alliance they have a new line, AMEK, which was a famous maker of pro audio stuff back in the day. And now they're using it to release a whole bunch of new stuff. And they've just released something called the Amic Eq 200, which is based on, I believe, the George Massenburg EQ, a GML 8200, which Howie has been trying out and enjoying. So we'll talk about that in a little bit, that EQ, the EQ 200, what he thinks of it, how it works into his process. Before we get there, I want to get a big bird's eye view of your approach. I'll give you what I know, and then I want to ask you a couple questions. You're in an analog digital hybrid system. You got one computer on one side of your audio comes out of it, goes through your analog desk, goes into the other computer. The first thing I have to ask about before we get into your analog chain is this is unusual for mastering engineers. You've got not one, but 1, 2, 3, 4 sets of speakers behind you. It looks like a big PMC.
Five, actually. Five. You see the computer monitors, the little advent of powered computer monitors, which, by the way, are some of my best speakers ever.
Wow.
Which is the fail-safe speaker.
So this is interesting. You've got those little computer monitors, the big floor-standing PMC, some Genelec, some KRK, some NS10s. Am I incorrect? That seems unusual in the world of mastering engineers. How did you end up that way?
I've amassed these over the years because I really love speakers. The whole thing, well, some people think one set of monitors works for me. It does for some people. For me, I got to just keep switching off. I got to see where the shit lays on a lot of different speakers. And I like the Yamahas only because it's the old adage that, they're crappy speakers, and if something good comes out of them, which is absolutely true, you're in a good place. The KRKs, these are the newer V8s, which have amazing bottom end and really nice. They're my go-tos. The Genelecs are a very big reference monitor. Those are the 1035s, I think. They've been around 20 years. Fantastic speaker, very organic, good vibe. And then I have the gigantic PMCs, which they're big. And the room was built around them. And a lot of people have come in here thinking this is one of the better sounding rooms they've ever heard.
Good stuff. Now, if it's just you in there by yourself, which speakers do you feel like you spend the most time on? Do you go back?
I'm not going to lie to you. I like these big mamas.
All right, good.
These PMCs sound so good. I'm from the school is you got to feel it. I can feel it. Then I always check everything on little ones, the V8s and KRKs. I always go back to the NS10s. I listen to the Genelec. I listen on my little Advents. I have some headphones I check it on. I listen on earbuds once in a while. I'm covered, I think.
I think
Unless
so.
you got something else for me. Got something else you haven't heard yet?
Hey, another question for you is, I know maybe we'll take a look at your setup, but I want to ask specifically about EQs, compressors, and limiters. That's what people are going to ask about. So I got to ask you now. You have a couple of EQs in that rack that are analog. I know a couple of Soundtecs, so we'll talk about that in a minute, and a couple of compressors. I think you have like an SSL bus compressor and an iron. But I remember watching a video with, I don't know if he's your assistant or another fellow who works there, a fellow named Borza, who was saying that in all the time he's seen you work, he's never seen you use compression that much, that you're a lot more about EQ and limiting. Can you tell us a little bit more about your approach and kind of what you do?
Well, and Borza, he's my assistant. I've taught him well. I use it when I need it. The compression is more not about getting things loud. It's more about getting things tight and getting things like kind of vibey, okay? No, I'm not a big compression guy. On digital, maybe. On analog, not as much, because the more analog stuff you kind of pile up, the more sound, I wouldn't say you lose, but the more things get smeared. So with me, I like one really badass tight compressor, one badass tight EQ, and a lot of times I use the EQs together. It works all differently, but I'm not a huge compression guy for the sake of it. I'm more for the compression guy for the vibe of it, for the size of something, to warm it up, to open it up, to deaden it, that kind of stuff. I use the compressor more like I use almost an EQ. Right. It's more of it's a processor.
Yeah, more of a tonal shaping kind of color thing.
It's a tonal thing, and right now I got this SPL iron that SPL had lent me that I've had the software, and I so fell in love with it. I said, how bad could the hardware be, huh?
Right, yeah, that's another Plugin Alliance one, too. They've been doing a lot of the SPL stuff.
He got me that, and I've always wanted this, but the SPL iron lists for $8,000.
Wow.
And the plug-in you can get for, I don't know, a couple $100. So it's like, well, let's see, this way. But I fell in love with the plug-in so much, and I'm a big SPL guy, and they're all my friends, and they make incredible equipment. They make Mercedes-Benz equipment. Yeah. They were good enough to lend me an iron now, which is iron to my rack. I don't think it's going to be.
Sweet. Good stuff. Now, I'm raring to talk about EQ, which is the main topic today with that AMEK 200 EQ coming out. But before we do, I want to ask you really quick about limiting.
I'm not going to lie to you. I've hit the digitals. I have an arsenal of about 15 plugins that I use religiously. Half of them are plug-in alliances. I'm not going to lie to you on that one either. And they're basically compressors, they're EQs, they're high-frequency limiter de-essers. And the perfect situation is to have a beautiful analog front end just going through a beautiful converter, an atomic conversion, one pass on my SPL 120-volt console right into my Pyramix and just go hog wild on the digital.
Yeah, all right.
It's worked really well, and it's easy for recalls. When you have a lot of analog equipment, one after when they pile up, like I said, it starts smearing and it starts changing the sound.
Now, question for you on some of those EQs. I want to talk about today's topic just a little bit, that AMEK EQ 200, which is kind of inspired by the original Massenburg's GML's 8200s. I know you have two hardware analog EQs in your rack that are Soundtecs, that are from that era of like the original parametric EQs. They were the Soundtecs and the Massenburgs, and that's what this AMEK is inspired by. Why do you have that kind of old school analog parametric EQ in your rack? Why do you think the AMEK 200 and things like that George Massenburg are still relevant today? Why are those kinds of EQs useful now in 2020?
Yeah, great question. And the reason being is, I started out mastering in the 80s, early 80s. My first EQ was one of those GML 8200s. I had one for a while. It's somewhat similar. The Soundtec had a little bit nicer low end, a little less precise, a little more like giving. So when Dirk about 9 months ago came up to me and said, I got something here you're going to like. I go, what? He goes, so he showed me his first prototype of what became the AMEK, which was an 8200. And I put it on and I went, wow, I used it like an analog EQ, and because I grew up on these analog EQs, and I love the sound of them, but they break, they're noisy, they wear out. I put this one on, his first one, the first prototype, and I turned the knob and I went, this is exactly what I've been missing. Yeah. Okay, and I mean, you couldn't have like bing, 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 bing. You know, the bell went off and went, dude, this is great. So he said, okay, I'll come back when it's ready. I got this about 2 weeks ago, and I put it on. I played it. I opened it up. I mean, can I show you?
Yeah, please.
I showed right here. I opened it up, and I went, Mamma mia, this is exactly what I've been used to.
Mm-hmm.
When I flip the knobs and turn the buttons and put everything in, it feels analog, even though it's a digital piece of gear. And the one thing that really got me is it's so well made.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't release anything until it's ready.
Yeah.
It's like the fine wines. It's never released until, you know, the really good scotches, the really good whiskeys. We're not going to release it until it's perfect. I'm not going to lie to you. The team is fantastic. And I got it. I plugged it in, and bam, it was on my preset chain.
Wonderful.
Every session I open up has it in it, whether I use it or not.
Mm-hmm.
And what really got me to is just the 5 bands of EQ. It's got a width control in it. It's got a mono maker. It's got a left and right gains, and it's got incredible low pass and high pass filters. Mm-hmm. That to me is a mark of an incredible EQ when you got really, really great filters. Because, you know, as a mastering engineer, really, we're doing a lot of filtering. Mm-hmm. You know, and gain by subtraction, all of the above. But I'm not going to lie to you, it's now a piece of my, it's on my preset chain.
Yeah. Talk to me a little bit about that, using filters in mastering. It was one of the crucial things that my mentor in mastering, Joe Lambert, taught me. It was one of the first things he taught me is how he uses filters. Can you give me a sense for what the purposes of filters and then low shelving in the world of mastering?
It's just like it was in the old days. People don't record in perfect environments. Bass it's more about the bottom than anything. Bass is so subjective. A little off here makes it something else more. It's an addition by subtraction. It's just cleaning up certain things. And a lot of times, like I said, people are not working on perfect environments, especially I do a lot of program music where there's a lot of sub bottom. It's not played bottom, it's synthesized bottom, and it gets a little out of the way. Mm-hmm. It gets in the way. You want to take it out of the way. The same as a lot of hip hop stuff, a lot of big ass bottom. Mm-hmm. You know, when you just kind of smooth it out a bit, it still has that punch, but it's not crushing, and it's not breaking up, and it's not crapping out.
Right. It's not like the only thing that's hitting the limiter, whereas just the bottom end is making all the needles move. Yeah.
Well, for me, the low end filtering is where it's at here.
Yeah.
But you know, other than that, it's like it worked like an analog. It worked like an analog EQ. It looks like one. And turning the knobs, it just, you know, I like the round. I like the format here. This is my old school kind of love, you know, knobs, buttons, knobs, you know, shelves, frequencies, and gain. It's great. 1, 2, 3, bam, bam, bam.
And you're listening instead of looking at a graph and getting pulled one way or the other by what the graph is telling you. Well, a very cool thing about the plugin world, too, is that even you, a guy who has like a Bentley and a Mercedes version of everything, it's hard to justify having both a super high-end George Massenburg analog EQ in your rack and a Soundtech. And most people are like, oh, I got to pick one or the other. But now with plugins, you can have the Soundtech sitting in your rack and then the Massenburg sitting inside the computer.
I'll tell you another secret. You hit it on the nose. But what I do is, and this is the reason why I think these days I have very few, like, what, you know, us engineers, we don't like the word recall,
right?
Or retweaks, okay? Mm-hmm. You know, we don't like that recall word. It's like, woo, you know, it's like you've done everything you can. The guy goes, you know, I wish it sounded like this. So what I try to do on every project is I do an analog version, which is everything goes through it gets reconverted through. I have an Antelope 10 MX, you know, the super duper atomic clock. It's reclocked, reconverted through either those MyTech Brooklyns. I have these old DCSs. I have the Antelope ones. I have an array of converters, okay? And one pass through my SPL, you can see my 120-volt analog console.
Beautiful.
And then right into the computer. Mm-hmm. And that's basically what I call analog a lot. Or I use the Soundtech. The analog version, which I consider could have either digital or analog EQ in it, but it definitely has an analog front end, and it definitely has gone through converters. And then I give the client a version that's 100% digital, 100% digital processing, digital compression, digital EQ, with his zero phase difference, you know, and basically it really keeps the integrity of the mix. just improving it. Whereas the analog version kind of it does something a bit different.
Yeah.
And a lot of times I've done albums where I've done, and we've done half and half, which is even better. I love that. It's great. What I try to do is just for me personally, every mix has a point where it can be taken to another level, whether it's through analog, through digital, through osmosis, through whatever it is. There's a perfect spot for it, and I'm just trying to find it. Whether it's reconverting, or it's re-analog, re-digital, it's all sound to me.
Yeah.
It just has a different name to it.
So what are some of the guiding things for you that point you in the right direction about where to take a master? How do you know when loud enough is loud enough? How do you know how bright to take something, how dark to take something? Where do you pull those cues from?
Well, it's a trial and error. I'm not going to lie to you. You have to have really good meters and having a lot of really good cheap speakers, because the way I really do it is I have a set of these Advent, these little AR powered AR, little computer monitors, and they have to, they have to sound good on there. Okay, in the end, because to me that's like a cheap car, maybe a cheap Bluetooth system, just something where I can turn it up on there and it's not going to crap. It's not going to crap out. It's not going to crush. It's not going to crumble. So it's trial and error, and a lot of times, another thing again on projects where there's a little more of a budget, I do one that's very dynamic, like for Spotify streaming, Apple, and I do one that's a little bit more heavy-handed on level-wise for CD and for the high res, and it's funny how most people want the stuff that's loud.
Yeah.
So then when it comes to the streaming, I have to kind of wiggle it a bit. But I've never gotten bitten in the ass really. It's good sound is good sound. You just don't want to crush things and crumble things, and you want to stay true to the integrity of whatever the client's giving you, whatever the format is. Okay, you don't want to make things loud just for the sake of loudness. But we're coming back to a loudness curve now, because everything else, especially on streaming, every records get piled up one on top of another, and the one that sounds louder sometimes gets more attention, even though it's really not warranted. It's just louder. So everybody has this, this thing. I like to use the word competitive. So what I try to do is keep it loud, but keep it competitive, where it doesn't sound small when it comes up against another record, and it doesn't sound crushed on streaming. And streaming has gone a long way. All the Apple, Spotify, all those YouTube, all their formats change daily. Everybody says, well, this one, this number and that number. It's the number should be in that ear number, whatever kind of feels right. Okay. And luckily I've had pretty good luck on this. I don't know about you, what your take is on the streaming thing, but it's a whole nother conversation.
I think it is nice that streaming has made it so that you don't have to push things louder just to make them the loudest thing, because there's going to be some auto volume normalization. But with that said, part of the sound of so many records we love is the sound of compression and limiting, and you can't just back off on that and not sound like you're part of that genre anymore.
Yeah, I don't do her records. My friend is one of one of my good friends, Rob Kanilsky, is one of this Billie Eilish's mixers. But I went out back and I listened to the stream of the songs that everybody says sounds great. That stuff is blasted level one. I mean, I was like, whoa, really? And I go, yeah, well, it seemed, like I said, it's a great mix, it's a great song, and the mastering was pushed to the deathly point, but it sounded okay. So how can you? And it's a great track. How can you fault it?
Yeah.
So what I try to do is I try to just find that happy medium where it's nice and loud, everybody's happy. Depending on the type of the music, if it's hip hop or if it's kind of hard rock, or it's the kind of music that's aggressive, that says I like to be loud. You have to kind of go in that direction, and I do. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not. I kind of go. I'm trying to make music that has a passion, has a vibe that you turn it on, wow, that's nice. I like that.
And I love how you're such a good genre bender too, because I mean, you've worked with everyone from like Ben Folds to Cypress Hill to Spoon. I mean, this stuff is all over the place. And you work with a lot of really, really big selling acts. I'm curious, when I go back and look at the very beginning of your discography, there's stuff like Glenn Branca, like experimental New York stuff that I feel like only I know about. Yeah, that's it shows you how much of a New York music nerd I am. But then there's stuff like Herbie Hancock and all that stuff early on. But then as you go further and further down your discog, the names just keep getting bigger and bigger and all over the map. What do you think has lent to your success and longevity in this field? Because it's been since like 1980 at least. So that's like 40 years working on some of the biggest records around. Why do you think you were able to kind of hit it in the beginning and start getting big clients? And why do you think they keep coming back to you?
One word, open mind. Open-mindedness, okay? There is no, I don't listen to anything and go, oh, I can't do that. And it's a love of music. I can't say I love hip-hop more than rock or pop or jazz or electronic. It's just a love of sound. It's as I learned from my boy, Bob Ludwig. Bob was my daddy in the business for many years. He said, and sometimes he would get records that were like, oh, I mean, how do you put up with it? He says, well, I do it, I'm really working for the client. And that's so true. We're here to make whoever makes this music, whether it's the artist, the producer, the engineer, the label, you're trying to make them happy, okay? Yeah. In one way or another, whether it's a crappy project, it's a good project, you want them to walk out the door or finish listening to something, wow, that's really what I was looking for. So I take that to all levels of genre. And the beginning of the hip-hop stuff was really kind of where I cut my teeth, because that was actually at the beginning. I mean, I started mastering about 1980, and I was really young. I was like 19. Wow. And hip-hop, what they call rap music, was still all, there was no sampling. Everything was played with live musicians. Mm-hmm. Can you imagine that? And real studio sessions. And there's something fresh and really cool about it, and it got my feet in the door. It's like, okay, I'll do these, and they kept coming along, and all these people, the Rick Rubins, the Russell Simmons, all these famous producer guys, the Beastie Boy, all of them went up the ladder, and I went with them, and it's incredible to really just start something on a genre music and just keep it going, because hip hop and rock were meshed together with the Run DMCs. I did that one, the Walk This Way stuff, and then the rock and the hip. It all was like, it all kind of ventured out into related areas. Like a lot of the hip hop wanted more rock tones, a lot of the rock stuff wanted more hip hoppy, more different. The 808s, the drum. The 808s really kind of changed the whole world. And the Public Enemies, and I still remember, which really kind of freaked me out. I did, this was a Take a Nation of Millions, or is it one of Fear of Black Planet? We finished mastering the record, and the guy goes to me, do you realize there's not one played note on this whole record? And I thought about it and went, yeah, wow, it does, wow, and that to me was like, ding, 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 wow, this is the future right here. Yeah. Drum machines, synthesizers, and not a lot of played notes. And that was kind of the beginning of the end of having a live band on a hip hop record.
Right. And here we are, at least 30 years later from that, and that is still a driving force, absolutely. And it's also a driving force of hip-hop people wanting to take from rock, like Kanye West, did a lot of looking at indie rock, and indie rock does so much looking at hip-hop. And even with some of the rock stuff you did in the 90s, people were bringing kind of hip-hop rhythms into live drums and all that.
The crossover is incredible. And of course, it all started with my boys Run DMC. That Walk This Way was really the first one that, wow, you got a band like Aerosmith and you got a band like Run DMC. The two of them were at the top of their game, and they took one of the greatest rock songs, Walk This Way, and they just killed it.
Yeah, indeed.
And whether just on that recording alone, it was just, when everybody heard it, it was like, wow. And it was the production, and it was all a Rick Rubin thing. This was a day when everybody was super hungry. It was New York all the way, and it was like, Queens, Brooklyn, the Bronx, all us New Yorkers,
That's a fun record, man.
Changing the world with that music. Philly, too. not going to lie. Philly as well, and Boston too, but
yeah. That is a fun record. And this is a little bit more esoteric, but you've done Sonic Youth, you've done Cypress Hill. Did you do the Sonic Youth meet Cypress Hill record, or is that somebody else?
I might have done that, yeah, probably.
How do you keep track after thousands and thousands
I
of
don't.
credits?
I really don't. And the funny thing is, and this is even more scary, and I don't even want to, I one day I have a radio that play. There's one station out there just plays all the great songs, whether they're new or old, whatever. One day there was like 5 songs in a row. It's like, oh, I had some. I did that one. I did that. Wow, that one. Wow. And it's like, it's kind of cool in a way. It's kind of nice to know that, I actually, as an engineer, you've made a difference somewhere, or you've put, whether it's money or credentials, either way, I've made some kind of stamp here.
Yeah.
And as an engineer, what you want to do is leave. You want to have some kind of, not a legacy as much as you want to feel like you've made a difference.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Indeed.
I really believe that's very important.
Well, with how long people are living these days, I hope you make records for another 40 years, and I'm going to keep on listening.
I'll be honest with you. I mean, I moved out to LA in 2010, and nothing stopped. And since the 35 plus years, it really just, to me, it gets better. The equipment has gotten better. The monitor has gotten better. The whole digital side of things gotten so good. And I remember the years when the first digital came out. It sounded, nobody liked the sound of it. It was too scratchy. Wasn't in a bottom. It wasn't. That's pretty much disappeared, because I know it was another thing. I used to get I had a bunch of really beautiful analog tape machines, and the last 2 years I've gotten like 3 or 4 of them. I used to get at least 50 or 100 a year. Now, then it got down to like 20 to 30. Now I think I get 2 or 3 every year.
Of tape projects?
Things actually recorded on analog tape.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, it's over. I believe it. There's niche people, and if you have a lot of money, you could do something, and in the end, it may not even sound any better, because you can buy a bunch of people make beautiful sounding tape plugins. Yeah. You can get the sound of a tape right on a plugin.
Yeah. Well, I love how much super high-end analog gear you have in the room, but you're still a guy who loves and uses plugins for even more variety, and very cool, inspiring stuff. And I'm so glad that you get to have now that George Massenburg, that GML EQ, back in your hands in plug-in form through the Amic EQ 200.
It's incredible, and the best part about it is I knew what the original sounded like. This is where I really feel like I feel blessed here, because I knew what the original sounded like, and I'm using the what they call their plug-in version, their digital, and it's really, really, really close. Mm-hmm. As a matter of fact, I think I like it better just because of the zero latency. It never breaks. Mm-hmm. It doesn't hum.
Yeah. And man, how many times we've repaired the Soundtech.
You can get a great one for a couple $100. You know what I mean?
Indeed.
You get this on analog, it's going to cost you $10,000 or something. You know what I mean? At least,
my goodness. And then the maintenance on top of that.
Crazy. And the same with converters, but not even converters, compressors, with de-essers. I mean, any kind of audio processing, and and the plug-in line. And we got to admit, these Brainworks, they really got their shit together. And Dirk, I give Dirk and his team a lot of credit, man. These guys really work hard, but they come up with shit. They're a results company, and that's why they do so well. And I'm glad to be some kind of. I'm glad to be a part of that team.
And you're going to be making some presets for that EQ that we can all play around with too. So
yes,
thank you for helping out and being a part of the team that way.
The team asked me to do some presets, and why not? This is like, this is to me, it's like, wow. Even professionals, where do we start? We can have. I can give you a great starting point, okay, and then from there you take it, okay, or you can just use the starting point. It just makes the product that much better, really.
I hear you, man.
It makes it dummy proof too.
Well, I need that.
We all do too sometimes. more than you want to know.
Right. I know what you mean. A true blast talking to you, a honor and a privilege. I mean, it's unreal to be talking to this guy who worked on so many records that I've known and loved. I mean, I feel like you're the Energizer Bunny. We could go for another hour, but unfortunately, with the time that we have, I've stolen so much from you, and I've loved sucking every last bit of the soul.
I can show you a little bit more of the studio. You can see.
Give me a quick grand tour before we go. Check out these speakers.
Speakers. A lot of converters. A lot of cable.
There's that YCQ. There's that SPL iron. Let's go real slow on the left here. So we got the SPL iron. We've got that SSL bus compressor up top. We've got the two Sontec EQs.
This is the holy grail of the Sontec 432.
I hope Dirk
models that one next. And this was the
Massenburg
version of the
Sontec version of the Massenburg. Yeah. Exactly,
or vice versa. This is the latest version. It's really good.
Yeah.
And this is the SPL. This is the 120-volt console, which has the sound of it, the most headroom on anything you've ever used. This is the original Weiss desk, which I'm about ready to get rid of. Mm-hmm. I love the EQs on it. This is the original Weiss EQ that came out in the 90s.
Those EQs digitally too.
They just made them digitally, so I'm going to get rid of this box. And then the original Antelope converter. There's super duper 64-bit converters. An Antelope 10M, Trinities, Brooklyn converters, another a great turntable, another a set of another Pro Tools system here. Let's see,
and then there's your little Advent speaker there.
Yeah, these are the little Advents.
Yeah.
And we can see I have another Pro Tools system, the HD. The Advent's a really, really old school, great programmable linear turntable, which makes more fun for me. Mm-hmm. I have my whole Pyramix rig, which there's
that AMEK.
Honestly tell you, I have a lot of, where do I get the most plugins? I get a plugin alliance. Look at this.
That looks like a long list. I can't see it with the glare, but that looks like, oh, there we go. Now I see it.
I'm not going to lie to you. The plugins work and they sound great. And I'll show you the monitors. I have the KRKs. I have these big PMCs, the big amps.
Some Brystons, yeah.
And, an old CD player. It's great. And my fake plants.
You gotta have some greenery, baby. Gotta have some greenery. It's like your version of the lava lamp.
Anyway.
Gorgeous, dude.
Well, I got some salt lamps in here. So anyway, are we good here, or do you need something else?
No, this is fantastic. Howie, thank you so much for taking the time today.
Just hit me up. Call me up. You have my Skype number, and let's hang.
Yeah, okay? I dig it. Hopefully we'll visit you there in person when times are a little different. And again, super appreciate you taking the time. For those of you at home who want to try out the Amic EQ 200, you go to pluginalliance.com. That's plugin-alliance.com. You can check it out and anything else they make for free for like 15 days. So definitely check out the free trial there. And if you're not sold, I'd be surprised, but give it a try. And if you're a subscriber to the Mega Bundle, it's now like another free plugin you own. So awesome. So get it, tweak with it, be merry, do some mastering of your own, pull up one of Howie's masters. You have like 1 million records that he's worked on in your iTunes right now. So go play around with it on one of those and see if you
remember when you're quarantined, this is our time, or this is the time now we can get jiggy. We can get really do stuff, really kind of make something happen.
Indeed. Okay? Well, I appreciate you getting jiggy with us. It was a blast getting jiggy with you, Howie Weinberg.
Take care, guys.
Thank you so much, Howie, for hanging out with us.
We'll talk soon.
All right.
Cheers.
Thank you guys for hanging out with us. See you next time.